Awesome, guys. Welcome to this networking party. We have an awesome speaker today. It's Roger Comstock. He's got a podcast. He's working on books. He is the CEO of $0 Startup. He is an awesome guy who is just grateful to be alive, and you're going to sense that today. So if you're ready to level up and have a better life, he's the man who's going to teach it to us today. So, Roger.
Let's go.
Well, I feel super grateful to be with all of you guys. I already love you a ton and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys about important things in your life and getting what you want. I think one of the things, we'll talk about $0 Startup for those that are interested in that. I want to talk about really what makes us happy in life. Let me do a quick little exercise. This is interesting. Just close your eyes. Humor me for just a second here. Close your eyes. Just think of what is most important to you, the thing that matters most, more than anything else to you right now. Let it kind of sit in your mind, whatever image that may be. Now open your eyes real quick. Just raise your hand if you thought of money. Dude, is this so funny? Look at this. Look at this. It's nuts. Now, it's interesting because we spend our whole lives chasing this stuff that we really don't care so much about, right? Like literally, every single thing that we do is, I gotta get more money, I gotta get more money. Now, money is not that hard to make, and we'll talk about that. You can make a lot of money. If you want to make $100 grand in a month, I'll show you ways you can do it, right? But it's interesting because money is more of a byproduct, right, of providing value for people and helping, right, which is super, super cool. One of the best individuals in the entire world, best salesman ever to walk the earth was Jesus. So we'll talk a little bit about him, how he taught people how to get what they wanted in life, how he actually promised that he'll give them, right, what they're asking for, which is super cool. But a lot of it, and so I want to talk about mindset tonight after we go through kind of what 0DS is. If you guys have questions, I'd imagine that's why most of you guys are here. You want to hear kind of what 0DS is and how it works. And it's amazing. It's super, super cool stuff. But I really want to focus on kind of who you are as people and your mindset. Mindset is not some fluffy thing, right? Some people hear mindset and immediately they kind of dismiss it, thinking this, I want the nitty gritty, rubber hits the road, application-based information. However, mindset is what will enable you to get literally whatever it is that you're wanting in your life, right? And I'm going to recommend, hello, how are you? Good, it's super good to have you here.
Documented.
It's awesome. Don't worry about coming to, I'm late to things all the time. It's the best. So no stress. I would never want anybody to ever feel embarrassed. But I think, it's important to understand that there's levels to our thinking, right? If you guys ever played video games, right? You go through the first level and it's usually pretty easy, right? It's not that challenging. And as time goes on, you beat levels and you end up leveling up and it gets more and more difficult, right? Every single time. And life is no different. Sean Whalen guy, are you in his group?
Yeah,
I'm in his group. Good.
He's like a mini him.
Oh, that's awesome. Dude, that's a good thing. Well, grateful you're here. Super glad you're here. But what's amazing to me, right, Dr. Seuss, he was more than just a children's literature author. He's more of a philosopher in a lot of ways, in a lot of good ways for us in life, right? And one of the things that he taught, he said, you're off to great places. Today is your day. And the way he says next is probably one of the most important things we can understand in life. It's so important. He says your mountain is waiting, so get on your way, right? So what's interesting about that is we have this idea that we get to enjoy the valleys. That's where we think the happiness is at, down on Easy Street, right? And that's where all the good views are at and the great experiences. But none of that is true, and it'll never prove to be true. In life, we're governed by principles, right? There's no such thing as moral relativism, if you've heard that term, right? There's no such thing as maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. The law of gravity works, right? If you're going to fall off something if you jump, that's a law, right? And so there's principles too in life, and it's that when we are faced with challenges and we approach them with the correct mindset, they actually enable us to develop into who we have the potential to become. And it's in that experience that we find true, lasting success and happiness and satisfaction with life. And we find that our relationships are super good, right? And that in that situation as well. And then money just comes. It's like a vacuum, right? You kind of become like a magnet to it. The law of attraction there's parts of it that, if you guys have heard of that, there's parts of it that work, but it's not like people teach, right? It's not like, close your eyes, just, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, I want $1 million right here, please. But that's not how life works, not at all. Maybe you've figured that out, right? It's not how you get what you want. It requires a massive amount of action, right? Coupled with a belief system that allows you to be able to really stretch where you're currently at. I'm going to recommend a lot of books tonight. I'm a big reader. I think it's always good to have your nose crammed into books. They're good for your mind, right? And one of the books you should read, if you haven't already, is a book called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, right? It's going to stretch your thinking. You're surrounded by a lot of people, and everyone's amazing, right? Human beings. I just wish everyone could see what they're capable of. Everyone's amazing, but not everyone thinks of themselves the way they should, right? Like when I look at an individual, I think, man, I wish you could see in yourself what I see in you, right? Because, sorry, man, I don't mean to get emotional, but like, people are amazing, right? Like they can do some cool stuff, really, really cool stuff. But because not everybody realizes that, right? You got to be willing to kind of break out of what everybody else is thinking about themselves, right? To something at a different level. Like truly, you got to level up. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but it's going to require some discomfort, right? Things that are challenging. It's interesting. Like a caterpillar, you guys probably know this in its process of becoming like this beautiful thing, right? We look at a caterpillar; it's basically like a worm with legs, right? Like they're not that good looking. Right, but what's interesting is they go through this very challenging process. Right, they go into this cocoon, and there's this little tiny hole that is formed in the cocoon, very small, and the caterpillar actually has to squeeze through it, and through that process of actually squishing through this thing that's very challenging for the caterpillar, it forces the blood in its body into its wings that allows it to actually fly. So, and any help through this process actually handicaps the butterfly, right? So we actually learn, there's a great book I recommend as well called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Right? You're going to learn that like anything in life that you want that's worth having is going to require some degree of sacrifice, right? Think about, like my wife, she's my best friend in the entire world. I'm obsessed with her. I love her. She's the best. Excuse me. And because of that, right, like I love to sacrifice for that relationship. That makes me super happy. That's what makes me happy, right? Like her, she's amazing. And it's always worth it, right, for things that matter. So like a lot of times I hear people all the time, and talk is cheap, right? People can flap their gums all they want in life about what they would like to have, right? But unless they're willing to act and move forward, they're really not going to get very far, right? And so the thing that I find fascinating, that I love watching, is an individual that says, hey, I want to do this, and then they go do it. Right, that to me is like, that demands respect. It's like, good for you, like you moved. Right, and I want to talk about Peter, actually, in just a second. I'll reference Peter. I think, is everybody here religious? Whether you think it's God, the universe, whatever it is, I'm going to use some biblical references, okay? Because they're important. It's great teaching, right, that's available there. So I'll write it down so I don't forget, because it's very, very important. And what it illustrates is, it actually illustrates the power of our minds, right, and our belief systems. And so right now, I'll kind of get through some of the fun stuff when it comes to $0 startup, so that this can be focused around business. You guys are welcome to ask any questions you would like. I can hang out with you guys as long as you want to. I'm here for you guys. This is really fun with small groups. To work with me individually is $40,000. So when I get to work with people like this, it's so legit. Like, I think it's so cool because I get to just come hang out, and I'd love to answer any questions, help with anything. If you want to grow in your business, great. If you want to grow in wherever, right? Like, we can talk about whatever. But $0 startups really cool, and I'll tell you why. Right? There's a lot of business models that are out there, and a lot of them are insanely risky, right? Like they require a substantial amount of risk. So my goal has always been, and people will think like because I'm an entrepreneur that I'm risk tolerant, right? That I love risk. I don't. I hate it. I think risk is terrible. So I have found ways like throughout my journey to mitigate completely, like completely eliminate all risk. And you may say, well, that sounds like snake juice, and it's not. You can just kind of look at the model and see for yourself, like if it's something that's meaningful. But the goal here is to be able to understand that there's ways to obtain freedom without having to put yourself like in a really uncomfortable position, right? So I love real estate. We've got some people here that do real estate. Real estate can be awesome. I bought a piece of property last year and donated it, and it gave me a $240,000 write-off on taxes, which is awesome, right? So that's great. Real estate's awesome. It's not a bad thing. However, there are macroeconomic and microeconomic risks, right? No matter what. It's just, and I'll illustrate those, and so that we can look at them and we can be very objective tonight. And when I say objective, I mean I don't want you to feel persuaded into anything or out of anything. You can just make your own call. I think that's important in life, right? To be able to make our own choices. And so, if you have anything like if I mention something like, I don't know if that's correct, I actually would love if you brought it up, right? Like I love when people push back a little bit, and we can learn together. That's where like real growth can happen, right? Which is awesome. So when we look at, especially now, like the macroeconomy, right? The geopolitical situations we're in right now, the microeconomic situations we're in right now, it's very confusing for a lot of people. We're really truly in uncharted territory, unprecedented times, as we've heard so many times, right? Like as far as, especially the economy, it's like, where do I put my money, right? Like the stock market's kind of wild, crypto's wild, real estate can be wild, right? It's like, where do I put it to make it grow and do what I need it to do? And I'm of the opinion, like I buy stock every single month, and then I buy crypto every single week, but I do it in a way that it's called dollar cost averaging. Right, so you're capturing upside and downside, and you're creating an aggregate, right, of the returns that are available in the markets. So that's a little safer, right? But when it comes to actually creating your own economy, that's what's amazing, because it doesn't matter who the president is. That's amazing. It doesn't matter what the rules are, right? Like you can create your own economy, which is really, really cool. Your individual economy for your life, for your family, that presents complete freedom, like total freedom. A good example, like I'll give you an idea. This is so fun. Like me and my wife, we were down in St. George, and my cousin had recently been married. We were having the time of our lives. We're eating Nielsen's frozen custard. If you've been there, it's so good. And while we were eating ice cream, laughing our heads off, like $900 comes into the account while we're sitting there eating ice cream. And we were going to bed that night, and $3,000 came into the account. And we were playing Settlers of Catan with family. Like $800 comes into the account, right? Like that's truly making money, doing what you want to be doing, in a way that doesn't require risk, and I'll show you kind of how that works. So real estate, again, it can be awesome, and there's ways to do it. You've probably heard of like Brandon Turner, who's like bigger pockets, right? These guys are awesome. There's ways to house hack. There's the Burr method. There's ways to buy houses without as much leverage, or use other people's money through syndications or a fund model, right? But that requires a whole lot of effort, a whole lot of learning, a whole lot of figuring things out, and some risk, right? So let's just say you buy a house. We'll look at real estate for just a second. And again, real estate's awesome, right? It's not bad, but I want to outline pros and cons to different models, right? In business that can really help you a ton, which is stellar. And I also want to talk about, I think it'd be fun to talk about like core competencies, things that you're very, very good at, and how you can outsource things that you want other people to do that you don't really want to be good at, right? That they can be good at, and that allows you to just have all the free time you'd like, which is stellar, right? Who doesn't want to be able to sit on the beach and make some money while you're there, or whatever it is, right? That's fun stuff.
Not what I want to do.
Yeah, like it's good. Not having to work for somebody else. But it's especially a bummer when somebody else allocates your value, right? They say, hey, I think you're worth this much, right? And one of the things that I want to make sure is very, very clear tonight, it's important, it's really important for people to understand, is that you get paid on value created, not in time put in, right? That's very important. It's a new principle to a lot of people, right? So some people are like, oh man, I can make this much per year, I can make this much per hour, or whatever it is. It's like, dude, and by the way, that's not bad at all. But what's more fun is it's like if I can add more value, what happens is like you have this box. We'll call it ROI on the side of this box, okay? Return on investment. Then we'll get back to this. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent here, but we'll come back to this. I'll put a little checkbox so you can make sure we hit it. Put a checkbox by Peter too. Make sure we come back here. And here, we'll cover this now. So in life, like just picture there being a cardboard box in the middle of this room, and in black Sharpie marker, ROI is on the side of it, all right? A lot of people in their lives, they cram as much stuff as they can into that box as is possible, right? Like I gotta be working hard, I gotta go hard, right? I gotta be doing stuff all the time, I gotta, right? Gotta be grinding. And that's important, grinding is important. But so I'll bring something else up in just a little bit, I'll put that so I don't forget. But what's more important is actually coupling hard work with smart work. And sometimes these things are presented as almost like mutually exclusive, which is not good. And I want to explain why, right? So some people are like, man, I'm a hard worker. Or they're like, I don't want to work hard at all, I only work smart. That's bad. It's like faith and works. Without either of the other, they're dead, both of them, right? You need both. You need to work hard and smart. And so what's cool about this ROI box is that you can actually learn that very little is required inside of it to get a ton out. Like a ton out. Which is really
I know how much.
like
was that?
A good chunk, right? Like it's good. Like to give you an idea, just so you guys know what's possible, right, for your lives. Like I have right now, like I'm wanting to, since you asked how much, I want you guys to think bigger, right? So some people get excited about like 5K, 10K, 20K, 50K a month, 60K, 80K, 90K, right? For me, it was 100K for a long time, and now that's easy, right? Making 100K a month is easy. That's not challenging to do, right? And so what you want to do is understand that once you get to today's goals will become tomorrow's standards, and that's huge, right? So, but what's also important is that requires a lot of mindset training, right? Like it's more than just grinding, right? And just putting stuff into the box. So when you ask how much, it can be substantial amounts, right? And there's different types of money, which is really cool. There's recurring income that comes in on a passive basis. We've got a good chunk of that coming in, that's fun. There's also large influxes of capital that can come in just at one time, right? Which is really, really helpful too. It allows me to have businesses that require zero venture capital. Is that a new term for anybody, venture capital? Everybody familiar with what that is? I would love so much, like one of the ways that I've been able to learn is recognizing I know nothing. Like still, I want you guys to know from the outset here, you're learning from someone that's constantly trying to learn and get better, right? So it's like, it's better if I say something and you don't know what it is, just be like, yeah, I don't know what that is. Right? That would help you a lot. And probably the group, because there's probably going to be someone that wants to know but won't raise their hand, right? So venture capital, everyone knows what that is. Okay, good deal. So companies don't need it. And it actually, there's a lot of pros to VC and there's a lot of cons to VC, right? Big time. The pros to VC is it provides growth capital, right? Like gasoline on a fire. It can help you grow quicker, which is stellar. To some people, depending on what your goals are, what you want. If you want freedom, like pure freedom, venture capital may not be the best option because you basically become slaves to your investors, right? Different VC groups are requiring a return on the money that they put into some venture, and you are basically the guy that's supposed to make things happen, right? My businesses don't have debt, which is really, really cool, right? Or they kind of have a rolling thing. My cards just pay off I've got a card that pays off every day and a card that pays off every month, right? It just goes through. And that's stellar, right? And there's ways to do that. So again, so we talked about this ROI box. And by the way, like people will say that you need those things, right? And you don't need them. Certain things are worth going into debt for based off of your belief systems, right? Depending on what you believe. How many of you have read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Oh man, this is a super legit group. I love it.
We only invite the cool people.
Yeah, it's serious.
That's you guys.
Hey, this is amazing. I love it. So one of the things that we learn from people that understand money is that it's actually okay to invest in things that are assets, right? It's funny, like somebody will go buy an $80,000 truck, which is a liability. Like my truck, it's expensive. It's a liability, right? I don't pretend that it's an asset.
It's a beautiful liability.
Your car. It's a liability, right? The thing's not an asset. And so what I want you guys to understand is that people, you pay money for liabilities and they don't make you money, right? But then somebody will, on the other hand, right? They're willing to go spend, and I'll say spend on purpose. I'm using that word on purpose. Spend 80 grand on a truck, but they're not willing to invest 17 grand, right, into their entire future. It's because human beings psychologically, we really struggle with something called the fear of loss. Like, we hate losing things more than we like getting things. We're super funny. Please,
Did
dude.
you hear about the how the Prius outperformed the S&P?
No, please, I want to hear.
Yeah, I guess it did. So the S&P didn't do so great, and the Prius, as a used car, increased more in price than the S&P 500, which is top 500 companies in the U.S. Which is crazy to hear.
That
Like,
is.
Prius out there, right there, guys.
yeah.
Hey, Prius is awesome.
Where's Eric? Eric's like, that's what I
Would we
thought.
call that an asset for that year? Would we?
Dude, we're living in wild times. These shoes are an asset, surprisingly.
Yeah, they are.
Which is crazy. They're on their own asset class now.
Yeah,
Shoes, used cars, actually, arguably, based off of what we've seen recently, they could be considered an asset, right? Over the past year and a half, but generally, right? They're a liability. But that's a really, really good point. Interestingly, like monkeys, they did this study on monkeys. Okay, so they gave this monkey an apple, and it was just pumped to get the apple. Thought it was the coolest thing ever, right? And they gave another monkey 2 apples, so it's obviously jacked. It's like, this is awesome, I've got 2, right? But then they take it away. They take one of the apples from the monkey, and it gets ticked. But it has the same amount of apples as the one in the beginning, the same amount. But it was way mad, right?
Yeah.
That it lost something more than it was happy that it got something. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, we see that all the time.
Yes, we do, dude. Yes, we do, huh? Big time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
So
big time.
this is a thing that requires a different paradigm, right? And paradigms are important. Another great book. Knowing this group, you probably have all read it, right? Like 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. I know y'all have read it. I won't even ask. It's awesome. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
What's important about that, though, is that actually the world sees things very differently than you want to see them. And I mean that, right? The world may be looking at everything through, like, blue lensed glasses. You want to take those off and, like, crush them. And you want to put on a different pair of glasses that you're going to see the same things they do, but in a different way, right? If everyone here is wearing blue glasses, we may look at this board, but it's going to have kind of a blue tint to it. Right? If somebody puts on green glasses, they'll see the same board, same information, but it'll look different, won't it? Right? That's what we need to work on. Right? We've got to see things differently. So when you see, okay, like here's an investment, it's not a loss. It's an opportunity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you want to be looking at is something called asymmetric risk, which we'll talk about in just a little bit too. Okay. I'll write it here so we don't forget. And by the way, please, like, do not at all feel bad if I go over on time and you need to bounce. Right? Like, I'm not going to feel bad at all. I really want to make sure you guys get tons of value hanging out with me. Like, I want to answer all of the questions that you have. If you guys want to do well, I'd love to hang out till 12 if you need me here, right? But just because there's some good stuff, right, that we can cover here. So let's just talk about real estate for a little bit. We're going to jump back to real estate, which will be good. I talked about the monkeys. So with real estate, right? Like you have
The Holy Ghost.
hey, welcome. That's great. But let's say you want to buy a house,
Classic.
okay? And in traditional financing, right, without a lot of creative capital, you're going to be getting usually like 20% down and 80% levered, right? You're going to be
Sure.
get right the money. So
So would PMI.
yeah, right. So you have, let's say a home costs 500 grand, okay, which is
So 1-bedroom apartment.
exactly right, especially in this economy.
100 square feet.
Exactly. Right. So let's say that you have this house that's 500K, and you put down 100 grand, right, to buy it. What's interesting is you're actually purchasing this thing for $500,000 for 30 years, right? So it's a 30-year debt obligation. Again, it's not bad, but it's good to understand what's happening, right, in a lot of ways. And every single home that you buy on top of the first home that you bought is an increased potential gain, but also an exponential amount of risk, right? And we'll talk about why that's the case. But what's cool is, so let's say that you buy this house, let's say the mortgage on the house, let's say that you're going to be paying $2,200 for your mortgage, okay? $2,200 a month. Say that you can rent this home right now in this area for $2,400 a month. Okay, fair? Is this like good to say here? So $2,400 a month. Let's just say that's what you can rent it for. So how much are you actually making? Outside of equity or appreciation in the home, let's say strictly cash flow is what you're looking
Both of those are coming in.
This is mortgage.
That's your mortgage?
This is rent.
So you're making $200.
$200. Okay, good. So
Classic.
This is interesting. So you're making $200. Now again, we hope that home prices appreciate. That's what we hope for.
Right.
Or apartment complexes, or storage units, or mobile parks, right, or whatever it is that we're purchasing. However, again, it's a little uncertain right now. There's some microeconomic risk factors, right, to consider. Now, what's interesting is that $200, you just spent $500,000. 400,000 of that is levered. 100,000 is your own money to make $200 a month. Total profit, in ideal circumstances, in a year is $2,400. Now, again, real estate is a great thing to have in your portfolio. Do I think it's like, so Brandon, I'll take it from the man, the legend himself, Brandon Turner, right? Raise your hand if you know Brandon Turner, or follow his stuff, Bigger Pockets, okay? He'll tell you before anybody else, like real estate is insanely challenging. So everybody has like this, like pie in the sky, high hopes. Oh, I'm just getting into real estate because it's the way to passive income, and it is, and it can be, but it is not what people make it out to be, right? It's especially if it is a career choice. Now, on the side of like, okay, I'm making money, I have a golden goose that's providing income, and I'm going to stash it away into real estate, that's a different story than like, hey, real estate is my job, right? So I admire this good brother. Real estate is his job, which is so cool, right, what he's doing. But like we have $200, so let's just say, so I just want you guys to see something, and I want you to understand what this is actually going to look like. So if we were to annualize this return, okay, multiply it by 12, we have $2,400 total in profit. However, this is interesting. This would be ideal. Like no one moves out. Your renters are amazing. There's no damage. Everything's perfect. So let's say that you've got renters that move out for 2 months of the year. Who's responsible for the mortgage?
You are.
You are, the debt holder. So let's say that you have $2,200 for your mortgage, multiplied by 2 is what? $4,400. And you had to pay that. Right, now let's say there's an HVAC system that goes out, okay? So let's say 2 months without rent, that's it. Just 2 months out of the 12 months that are there. So 10 months collecting, 2 months out. You're already $4,400 down. Your total amount that you were gonna make for the entire year was $2,400, based off of just strictly cash flow, not equity, not depreciation, right? Just we're talking cash flow. Does this make sense?
So now you're negative 2,000.
Yes. Dang, that sucks. Right, now look, what if the HVAC system goes out and that's $5,000? And now you're negative $7,000. That's with one home. Ouch. Now, what if you have 20 of those and there's a microeconomic, what if there's a ginormous downturn in the economy? These are things just to consider when we look at risk. Not to say you shouldn't do that or you should do that. Remember, we're being objective. That's a good way to look at things, right? Truth stands up if it's there, right? Like we can just look at it and we can question things and say like, okay, what does this look like? Is this objectively a good decision, right? Which is super, super cool, right? And real estate can be. Like I've got a really good friend, Bridger Pennington. Raise your hand if you follow Bridger. Okay, Bridger's the man, one of my really, really good buddies. He teaches people about investment funds and how to syndicate and how to build funds and how to raise money and put them into capital pools and just go buy a bunch of stuff with other people's money with returns, right? And that can be a cool model. Right, but what if you're looking like for just complete freedom with no investors or anything, right? Let's talk about kind of what I do and how it can work, right, for you. It's really, really interesting what I've done.
Right there. Is there a napkin thing right there?
Oh, dude, thank you. You can't forget about Peter. We'll keep him up there. So, it's a little easier to draw to stand for a second. So one of the interesting things about the digital world that we live in is it's created a ton of opportunity. And unfortunately, people just don't know how to leverage the internet, right? They have no clue how to do it. And it's a bummer. It's a big bummer. Like right now, raise your hand if you know Casey Baugh. Casey Baugh, okay, awesome. He's a great friend. Really great guy. And he said right now, if you're not making money in this economy, he's like, there's something that you're not understanding yet, right? And that's what's cool in life. Can I go on one quick tangent before we kind of? I have something called the arrival syndrome. Okay, the arrival syndrome. This is important. In life, I'm going to reference this to Casey and back to what we're doing here. Okay, but it's really important to understand. So in life, sometimes we level up to a certain degree and then we get comfortable. Raise your hand if you've been in that situation. If I was an octopus, I'd raise like all of my hands, all 8, right? Because we all get into that situation in our lives, right? And so we start moving up. Life starts to plane out, right? And what we do is, dude, this is comfy, right? And when we get comfy, we stop thinking, right? And we actually stop feeling satisfied or fulfilled in life when this happens too. So I actually want to talk about like real happiness, right? Like real happiness. And I'll prove to you that it's not money that makes you happy. Right? You may have wondered like how that is. Like it is not, I promise. You will not be happy because of money. And I'll show you how in just a little bit, or I'll show you why. But what's interesting here, there's something that happens, right? Like in people's lives, they hit this wall and they think, okay, like this is where I'm going to kind of hang out for a little bit, and they have a decision to make. You have a decision to make, like right now, which is kind of nice, right? You can either say like, okay, I'm at this certain point, I can level up, which is, I promise you, it's going to require some discomfort. So there's a choice there, right? Robert Frost, arguably like one of the coolest poets of all time, in a poem called "The Road Not Taken," he says, 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. And I just picture it, like just imagine what it looks like you're walking up Hobble Creek or up here Rock Canyon. 2 roads are diverging, yellow wood. One is going up, it's overgrown with weeds, it's uphill, it's a mountain, right? Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way, right? That way, or there's one that's going downhill, and you watch, there's just tons of people going down it, so it's downtrodden, you don't need anything to get down, it's gonna be easy, right? And so that's the same choice you have right here, but what's interesting about Robert Frost's point is that he says, I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. It's important. Sorry, it chokes me up because it's so important, right, for people to understand that. Like it's huge. It's life-changing information. Well, and I shouldn't say the information is never life-changing. Acting on information is always life-changing, right? That's important, right? And Tony Robbins, you guys I know Tony Robbins, right? He says knowledge is not power, and I agree wholeheartedly, right? It's not. Knowledge doesn't mean anything unless somebody does something with it. Right, so knowledge applied is powerful. So in this case, right, you have a choice. You can go up from here, and then you're going to come to another one. This is leveling up, right? This is what. So when people are like, "Hey, you got to level up in life," this is what they're talking about. It's not just like a fun saying, like, "Dude, level up," right? No, it's like there's actually levels, right, that you can experience. If you haven't made $100,000 in a month, you can. Right? There's nothing stopping. Here's the most legit thing in the entire world. No one is stopping you from doing that. Not one person. I'm rooting you on, right? Like I'm going to be here, just be like, yeah, dude, go get it. Right? You can do it. It's important. So I'm gonna write something up here that I don't forget it later as well. But look, there's this bummer deal to the arrival syndrome that people most often fall victim to, right? They get here, and in life you're never really stagnant. Right? You don't just like get to hang out at this higher level. You actually get a choice here, right? And you can start going down, right? Which stinks. It's never what you want. So what I find is it's very, very interesting. The people that I know some very intelligent people, like way smarter than me, way smarter than I'll ever be, right? And every single time I read a book, I learn something new, and it's that I know nothing, right? Like I get to the end of the book, I'm like, dang, there's a lot to learn, right? So what I observed that's very interesting is the people who are finding the most success are those who don't think they know everything. Right? It's very important. It's people constantly looking for new information, right? Constantly researching and studying and figuring things out. Isn't that cool? I promise. Go look at anyone, right, that's successful. You'll find that this is the case. It's really, really cool. And then you'll find people that aren't accomplishing very much, and they'll use things. They'll get into a room and they want to act like they know everything, so that they can fool people. Right? It's very, very different on the other side. Isn't that interesting? Right, so you can start picking like authenticity out fairly quickly with some of these filters. It's kind of nice. So you want to actually hang out with the guys that are asking questions. That's what I love, right? Like you find people and you're like, that's a good question, right? And so that's why it becomes really important to also be willing to be that person, right? Learning more and leveling up. So you never, as far as the arrival syndrome, you don't want to catch it, right? Like get rid of it. It's not something that you want in your life. Oh, and by the way, like the arrival syndrome is like this whole idea of like I have arrived, right? Like I'm here, I've made it, right? We never really make it. Few people have, right? And they're not here anymore, like Moses, right? It's good.
That arrival syndrome, did you coin that, or was that something from like another book that you read? Right?
That's a good question. That's one of my own things. So my book is actually going to be coming out in like 3 months, which would be, oh, dude, you're kind. That's so kind.
Sweet. What's the title?
Gratitude, Growth, and Giving.
3 G's.
The three G's. Yeah, dude, it'll be good. Well, I don't know if it'll be good. I hope it'll be. I say it'll be good as in like it'll be good to be done. I'll be honest. Like it's been very, very challenging. It's been one of the hardest things I've ever done.
If it's from you, it's probably good. You know?
Dude, you're kind. It'll feel good to be finished up with this thing. But I'm excited. I hope more than anything that people read it and they become better for it, right? That it helps them change, right? Something inside of them, it helps them level up in some way. Right, but I want to talk about a digital asset, and I'm not talking about cryptocurrency, right? In this case, and crypto's great too, right? You can do all kinds of fun stuff, real estate, and crypto, and stocks, and other things, right? But it's why it's important to learn. But one of the things I do want to talk about is an asset that doesn't cost any money, but that can create thousands of dollars in recurring income without spending money. Right? That's what's so cool. So check this out. Like let's say that there's, we'll just use epoxy flooring as an example, okay? Like check out how cool this is. It's probably gonna blow your mind just a little bit. And so feel free to ask questions. This is one of the coolest business models ever. So let's say there's a guy named Dwight Schrute, right? Dwight Schrute, let's say he owns a company called Scranton Epoxy, all right?
Excellent.
So Dwight, let's say that he's just beating his head against the wall trying to figure out how to acquire customers. If you guys own a business, you'll recognize customer acquisition is a fairly challenging thing, right, for a lot of people. And one of the things that's interesting is like, so for Dwight, he may be going door to door, right, knocking on doors, trying to figure out how to get the next epoxy flooring job. He's maybe sending out mailers, trying to find business. I can tell you he won't like to knock on doors in the summer. Biscuit Brothers done solar sales, right? It's hot, it's challenging, but it works, which is good. So Dwight's going to get deals. Let's say you talk to Dwight, you say, dude, Dwight, how many jobs are you doing per month? And let's say that he's doing epoxy flooring, right? He's doing garages. So is anybody here not familiar with what epoxy flooring is? Everybody is, okay, good. So Dwight's going to make like $2K per job. Let's say that he's doing four jobs per month, right? He's a new business owner. He's making $8K in revenue, right, outside of costs. Now check this out. Now let's say that I've got this. Let's say that I've got this asset that I own. Okay, this is really fun. By the way, this asset. So if you wonder like why my company's called $0 Startup, $0, like no money at all to build this, nothing. Right, Rocky Mountain Home Services. Okay, let's say that that's what my asset is called. Rocky Mountain Home Services.
We started one called Rocky Mountain Basement to do the same kind of thing.
Yes, good. Okay, good. I want to show you this stuff's amazing.
Good idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea.
Rocky Mountain.
So this is one of the things. So within the $0, I teach a $0 framework, right? And the framework is that you're not spending money before money comes in. Money comes in first, right? That's what's legit. Money comes in and then money goes out. So we just had a student who got into the program and he'd spent thousands of dollars trying to figure out this model, but the wrong way, opposite way, right? And it's really fun when people start to figure it out. So I want to show you something. And to give you an idea, let me just tell you one fun story. Like we've got this student in our program, his name's Austin, he's a legend. But last year he was an accountant, working a 9-to-5 job, cubicle, working for the man, right? Not fun for him. And so he actually saw one of my ads and he got into the program, purchased it. Within 8 months, he made over $30,000 in his 8th month, over 30 grand, which was so cool for him. He messaged me, he's like, dude, I'm gonna make more this month than I made in my first year in a job, which was really, really cool to be able to see. He's like completely free. He hangs out, last time I talked to him about it, he's hanging out like 4 hours every morning with his daughter, He now owns 2 companies. He's crushing it as an entrepreneur. So this stuff works like really, really well. We're going to go through a couple different options. Or things that you could kind of throw into like a $0 framework portfolio, okay? It's cool stuff. So let's say that Dwight is working in Idaho. Okay, so we'll put Dwight Schrute right here. Dwight Schrute in Idaho with Scranton Epoxy. Okay, good deal. Let's say that somebody else is over here in Orlando, Florida, and we'll call him Jim Halpert. All right, he's right there. We've got Pam Beasley, and she'll be in Texas. All right, and we've got Stanley, and he'll be, I don't know, up in Maine, okay? And we'll not worry about this right now. Okay, so what we see here is that this is very, very interesting. This is a very interesting model, and I want to help you understand why it's so legit, why it's so cool. If you buy a home, in order to make more money, what do you have to do?
Raise rents.
Raise rent, which can be challenging because you're going to have competitive you're residing in a competitive marketplace, right? Which is, so raising rents, what's going to happen is your renters are going to be like, hey, wait, I can get lower rent over here. I'm going to move out. It's like, oh, shoot, no, I'll go back down on rent, right? Creates a price war. Price wars are never good. So you could raise rent or you could add value, right? Value add. You could raise rents, try to. Or you could buy another home. Does that make sense? Or let's say that you syndicate or start a fund and you buy a 100-unit apartment complex. Once those 100 units are full, what do you have to do? You've got to buy another one, right? In order to make more money. Does that make sense? So you're spending more money, substantially more money, to acquire more money. Now here's what's very, very interesting. Like, let's just go back to our house example. Let's say that you wanted to make $1,000 a month through this rental strategy, right? Is everybody still here? Is this making sense? $1,000 a month through this rental income. You're making $200 off this $500K investment, right? So in order to make $1,000, you're going to have to 5x your 200. Does that make sense? So that means you're going to have to 5x your 500K, which puts you at an investment of $2.5 million for $1,000 a month. Does this make sense? Dang.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's why.
Right?
Especially
Like
when you have
it's,
the risk that you were talking about earlier.
yeah, right? Now again, please understand me. Like, real estate is not bad. Real estate's legit. It's really good. It can be amazing. Especially like Brody Fawcett. Do you guys know Brody? Does anybody follow Brody? Real Estate Investing School? You gotta all go follow Brody. That guy's the man, Brody Fawcett. He's done some amazing stuff with real estate, right? But this is scary because 2.5 million versus $0 is pretty tantalizing, right? That's exciting, especially when you realize the returns that are available in this type of model. Because what we have a very uncommon thing available with this model, very uncommon. In the investment world, people like drool over it. It's called an infinite return. Does anybody know, familiar with that term, an infinite return? It means like whenever you put money in and then you can make the money back, there's a certain percentage return, right, that you can make. So you put 1,000 in and you make 2,000 back, that's amazing. Right? That's a really, really great return on your money. You got a 100% return on your money, right? If you put 1,000 in and you make 500 back, plus your initial 1,000 you put in, you made a 50% return. So an infinite return, you can see where I'm going with this. There's no money in, but there's an infinite amount of money out. Does that make sense? It's really, really cool. And sky's the limit. Like, there's no cap, which is very cool. So if you think of this asset or just the internet and the way that it allows you to leverage opportunity as like a magical apartment complex with never-ending doors, right? Which is awesome. With each door that you want to buy, it costs you no money, right? Because you're either, in order to acquire an asset, it's going to come through one of two ways. It's going to come through money or sweat, one of those two, right? You're either going to build it or buy it. That's just how it goes. Right? You build an asset or you buy an asset. Buying assets for some people is what they love doing, and it's definitely great. It's, in my opinion, you should be doing both, right? You should understand at least both. How do I build and how do I buy? And what's smart, right? So here's what's cool. So we're going to draw a little infinity sign here. Say Dwight's over here. What if I come to Dwight? Just think about this. Let's say I call Dwight and I say, dude, Dwight, my brother, I can send you 15 to 30 people on a monthly basis that already want their floors epoxied. Are you guys like totally slammed right now, Dwight, or could you handle a couple extra appointments? Like, what's Dwight gonna say?
We got it. That'd be great.
Let me check my schedule real quick.
Exactly. No, Dwight's gonna be biting at the bit like Salivating, right? Dude, oh, I would love more appointments. This is amazing. Especially if he can sit at home on his biscuit on the couch with his family, right? With the air conditioning blowing, watching The Office, right? And then he gets a text message. It's like, hey, Dwight, you've got somebody that wants their floor epoxied. It's a 3-car garage and they want it done next week. Can you call them and, right, try to schedule it out? How nice is that for Dwight?
It's awesome.
Dude, that's amazing, right? So let's just say Dwight is a closer. Let's say this guy knows how to close. So let's say that I send him 30 people, right? Let's say that he closes 30%. He gets 9 deals. Watch what happens to this dude's revenue. Is this the coolest thing? So check this out. Look, this dude goes from, so he closes 9 of those deals. Remember, they're making about $2K per job. He went from making $8K, busting his tush, right? Going door to door, beating his head against the wall. Like, man, I don't know what to do. I need business. Look, 9 times 2K. Now he could be making 18K plus his initial 8K, 26K in revenue. What does this do for Dwight? This creates freedom, and it builds a business. It can build a business for him, because now he can hire 1099 contractors to go in the hot garages that he doesn't want to be in. He can become a manager and a leader at that point. Right? You see how cool that is? Now, here's what's legit. Now, this is the part that you're literally going to go, wait, what? Right? Like, so what if I go to Dwight and I say, dude, what if I could help you make this, Dwight? Right around here, if you could sell, it's only $1,200 a month, Dwight, to do this. You guys seeing this? I'm gonna make just about as much as somebody that just invested $2.5 million for free. It's amazing. Now Dwight can go, oh, dude, yeah, like I'd love to do that. Let's sign up. Well, what just happened to my bank account? $1,200 coming in on a monthly basis to send him things, and this is all automated. I don't have to send him anything. Right, so in my program, I teach people something called autonomy through automation. So there's systems in place that just redistribute leads to these guys, right? Which is super cool. Now, here's what's amazing. Let's say that with this, now this is another really cool thing, right? With the same asset, right? I don't have a different one. This is where what I do is new. It's very different. It's very, very different than what other people are doing. It's really cool. So let's say with this asset, we've got Jim Halpert here in Oklahoma, or Orlando, Florida, excuse me, Orlando. Right? Remember, this person's in Idaho, but with the same asset down here in Florida, what if I call Jim and I'm like, dude, hey, do you want me to send you people, right, that already want their floors epoxied? What's Jim gonna say?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, we would love that. It sounds amazing. Like $1,200 a month, Jim. Wait a minute. You seeing how cool this is? That's $2,400 a month from 2 people with the same asset with $0 invested. It's amazing. Now, just think, watch this. You only need 10, which it's not challenging, right? To be able to get, I shouldn't say that, it would be challenging your first couple times, right? Riding a bike the first time is challenging. Once you figure it out, it's not that hard. It's kind of like, you know it like the back of your hand. You can get on a bike after not being on one for 5 years and do fine. But let's say you have 10 people like under this same asset, okay, different states. So here's what's interesting with real estate. Again, like I think business is fascinating. It's the coolest stuff ever. That this stuff's even available. It's so legit, right? Because look, with real estate, what's your market? It's your locale, wherever you're at, right? Like if you own, unless you're doing Airbnb, but then you're banking on tourism, right? People coming or hanging out, visiting family. But let's say that you buy a home here in Provo. You're renting to people generally BYU, UVU, right? Provo. Or an apartment complex here. It's going to be Provo. Or Airbnb, right? Again, not a bad strategy, to be clear. It can be very good. Now, what's crazy, though, is that this asset costs me no money, and I can service the entire country. It's amazing. Right? This is insane. So do you want to see something bonkers? Look at this. 1,200 times 10 clients. It's $12,000 a month. It's amazing. Well, let's say your cost after they've paid, because I teach now you want to hear something legit. Here's what's so cool. You can actually have your money that's being spent. So I've got a credit card, that's really, really cool. What you can do is you can actually have, so in order to get them traffic, like picture this thing as like a traffic stop, this asset, okay? So people come to it, they're going to be rerouted to wherever they're at, right? Oh, I want epoxy here? Perfect, you're going to Dwight, right? Florida, oh, you're going down to Jim, right? Over here in Texas, you're going to Pam, right? So it's just rerouting automatically, just sending a text. And I'm not sending any of those texts. Remember, it allows you to be able to do your own thing. I wasn't sending any of these. It's super, super cool. So what's interesting about this model now, right? So say you've got 12K. Let's say that your cost after they've paid. So remember, let's say this is your bank account. So money is coming into the bank. Now you're gonna love this. This is so fun. There's something called I call an initial build-out fee. And putting this all together. So remember when I talk about recurring plus up front? Watch how cool this is. Like, so say you start working with someone. Say I'm going to start working with Mikey. Say, Mikey, hey, I'm going to start sending you people. They'll probably start coming your way in about a week. It's going to be $1,500 to start working with me. I'm going to work with you one-on-one, and then $1,200 a month. How much did I just make in about 2 seconds? $2,700. It'll take me about 13 minutes. Actually, to be honest, that is the exact amount of time a new student set up somebody after they had got this rolling. 13 minutes.
You offered value.
Isn't that
Yeah.
cool?
Trade your time for that.
Yeah. Think about how cool that is to set it up. Right? Once one of these is set up, it's as easy as actually clicking duplicate and then just changing where it's being ran to. Now, remember, this is so important. In life, so let's say somebody that's working at Mickey D's for $10 an hour, 8 hours a day, $80 by the end of the day, right? Or $400 by the end of the work week, times 5, right? 400 times 5, they're making $2K a month, $24K a year. Money doesn't make us happy, but we want to be free. That's what makes us happy, right? It's a good thing, freedom and growth and opportunity, giving back, right? Philanthropy, that's fun, to do fun things for people, to give, right? And that requires, so it's just like an airplane, right? Like if you want to give back, you got to take care of yourself first. You got to be able to be making enough money that you're like, hey, I'm good. Now I can actually redistribute. I can help some other people with their masks, right? And so what's interesting is like you can have days when you're making, lots and lots of money, right? Where within an 8-hour day, you may make 30 grand, right? Or whatever. So what some people will make within a year, right? And it's just learning how to leverage certain things that work and getting your nose into books of people that have been there and done that. I'm teaching tonight, I've just learned from other people. And then I've kind of riffed off stuff. This would be kind of cool. And you get to go into like your mad science laboratory. That's what's so fun about business, right? You have an idea. It's like, dude, I'm going to try this. Right? You start going to the storyboard. It's like, I don't know if this will work. You should see my whiteboard that I've had before. It's like, got all these like, it looks literally like some just mad science place, right? And you just test stuff, and if it doesn't work, you test something different. So this is really, really cool, right? This model. So let's say that it costs you $300 after they've paid you that $2,700, $300 a month to run this traffic for them, okay? Please, my brother.
I don't want to interrupt, but
No, you're
kind of a
fine.
crucial question I think can help the layman, where I run into this and I get immediately discouraged, right? But that's why I want to ask this question, just to kind of get to the bottom. I hope it's a good answer,
I can't promise that.
yeah,
Okay,
well, I guess my question is just, I assume you didn't build the software yourself, right? Like that you're using. You're probably finding pre-made software somewhere, right, and linking it in, or did you write this?
Like for this?
Yeah, like that's what
Dude,
I mean.
this is
Like
Facebook.
It's, okay, that's
It's just
okay.
Facebook ads.
So you're saying
Mark,
Facebook?
that's
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So you're taking something super simple, because to me, I get
I know.
discouraged immediately when I
Mark.
see this.
Oh,
I'm
good old
actually
Mark.
kind of discouraged by it, but that's because of I'm having trouble growing into this mentality of like, oh, this is easy, It doesn't seem easy to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're telling me you just use Facebook.
I want to talk about that, man. I want to answer this question
But
too.
yeah,
So let me
not
put
a
it.
coder. You don't like speak in computer language.
Dude, let me. This is really important. So we'll answer that.
Cool, thank you.
My
So
brother.
So this is kind of follow up on his, because I've looked into this model a lot, so I kind of understand it. When it comes to the lead genning, do you hire that out to somebody else, or have you built your own system to do it for your students?
Dude,
You
this is
outsource?
so cool. So check this out. This is where, remember when I said like we want to talk about what your core competency is and how you can actually outsource a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love about life is relationships. I think they're very important. So I had another student who got in my program that's trying to like do stuff on their own a lot, right? They're trying to do all this building, and it's a pain in the rear, right? And so what's better is actually to find a group, and I'm going to actually talk about more products than this that you get that again will kind of blow your mind as far as what's available. But you can have a group. Here's a fun example of one of my clients. Okay, I'll just tell you this real quick as a tangent. We'll get back to this to answer your question. So my students all get a group that can do everything for them. They pay the same price to that group as I do. So there's no like upcharge at all to them, which is legit. So they come in. Here's a cool example. Like I talked to, this is a company down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Still a client called KDC Mechanical. Oh man, just had a. Better write it down.
We need a bigger whiteboard.
Oh man, you're so kind. I'll come back to this because it's really important. So we'll come back. But this client, he had been quoted like $8K and $5K to just build a website. Right? You don't want to build websites. I've built websites and programmed. It's not fun, and it's painstaking work. Right? It's not fun. So what's cool is like this group, this guy, his name's Jeff Marley, and I had talked to him on the phone. I was like, dude, we'll build your website for you, $3,500, right? And he's like, oh, that's great, right? So we closed the deal after we were talking to him for a while. He's like, yeah, that sounds great. So $3,500 comes into my account, right? And it's actually $3,699. Sorry, this flat. So my total cost, right? My total cost for that deal was $370-ish total, and I didn't have to do any work, no work. Right? Somebody else does it. So I always want students learning how to be able to get 50 to 95% margins on deals that they're doing, which is very, very different than most models. So Amazon, to give you an example, you guys have probably all been hearing about these Amazon stores, right? Or Walmart automation or Amazon FBA, right? So Amazon margins are around 13%, and usually the individual that's running your store takes 35% of your business. So you're going to maintain 65% equity. Is everybody familiar with that term, equity? Oh, it's ownership. So, 65% ownership of the company. Now, here's what's crazy. Let's say that you're selling fidget spinners, all right? So fidget spinners, say they're $1 each, right? If you've got 13% margins, it means you're making 13 cents. Now, that can be great with volume, right? But what's interesting about the economy with this type of model is that people's tastes are always changing. So fidget spinners were hot for about 4 months, 5 months. Then it changed. Right? And you had to sell a heck of a lot of them to make any sort of substantial amount of money, and then you're splitting that money with somebody else, and you're also using a revolving line of credit, which is risky. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I've used those before for certain things. It's not bad, but it is risky. And I remember, I'm a big fan of like getting rid of risk, squish it. Right? And so in this case, right, with this guy, I'm going to make the same amount of money as somebody in real estate makes, and I'm actually going to make money instead of spending money to do it. And I'll tell you what I mean, right? In a way that's zero risk. It's so fun, man. This stuff's so fun. So talk to this guy, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. So pays the money. Then my money goes out to this group. They start building the website. I don't have to do anything. The guy's like, this is the most beautiful website I've ever seen. I'm like, dude, good. Glad you like it, right? And then I asked him, like, do you want us to write the words for you on the website? And he's like, Raj, he's like, let me give it a shot. So a day and a half later, I hear from him. I get a text. He's like, Raj, I'm pulling my hair out. Can you just do this? I was like, of course. Right? So I was like, no problem. I was like, you just want me to charge the card on file? He's like, that sounds awesome. I was like, it'd be $700. He's like, that sounds amazing, right? Which was great. So charge that card. I found a girl. She said she'd write the copyright for $40, and I was like, it's like no way. I was like, that's too little, right? So I paid her more. I think I paid her like 140 or 160, something around there. The rest I get a pocket, right? So again, I'm doing nothing. I'm not writing. I'm not coding. I'm not doing anything. She's like, hey, awesome. Now here's the part that you're gonna love, right? Then I charge him still $199 a month to maintain his site. It's like insurance policies, right? If nothing bad happens on the website, awesome. That's great. Just like you're paying for insurance every single month. If nothing happens, that money is literally like you're lighting it on fire, but it's insurance. If something does happen, you're really glad that you have the insurance, right? If something happens to his website, he's going to be glad because we're just going to take care of it for him. Does that make sense?
Have you done for that? I mean,
what was that?
What kind of upkeep have you done for that? What kind of risk do you?
0. It's awesome. It's so cool. It cost me $16 to do that. So my cost is $16. My amount coming in residually every month is $199.
$16 just to keep the website live, pretty much.
Just that. Actually, so what's really cool is this group actually monitors it.
Oh, that's
right.
Awesome.
They do the upkeep, right? Like they'll do like in fact, I got an email the other day from them. They're like, hey, the site's not showing up. So they let me know, like, hey, the site's not there. I went to type it in. I was like, it's live. It's still good. So it worked, and I let them know. I was like, it's live. Like, okay, good. We're seeing it on our end too. So it's really interesting, right? So this is where I'm talking. Remember the box? We're going to go back to the beginning of the of the call, the discussion here.
The ROI box?
Yeah, the ROI box.
You're probably
good
with
stuff.
that. You probably give them reports and value that way too, right?
They can get reports, especially so you guys have heard of like SEO,
Yeah.
right? So what's very interesting about SEO is it's needed for, I'll tell you why, right? So if you've heard that term SEO before, right, or like PPC, different ways to market.
Pay-per-click,
Yeah, pay-per-click, right? What's interesting about SEO is we're going to talk about this now, so this is good to come to. By the way, I think we're probably well over. So I've got some other things that I would love to share with you that are like insanely valuable, that students pay buku bucks to learn. So I'm happy to hang out with you guys as long as you like. What I'll say is like in any sort of business, right? Business can be very easy and a ton of fun if it's done the right way. It can be the worst thing. Like it can be financially disastrous if it's done the wrong way. That's what scares people, right? And that's why it's good to have a mentor, right? That's why it's good to get, and it doesn't need to be me. If you want it to be me, I'm happy to help you, but just find a mentor, like anybody. Sean Whalen, right? Like the free man, right? Like Sean's a great guy, right? Like people, you just need someone that's been there and done that can be like, oh wait, like try this so that you don't get bamboozled, right? That's important. So if we have this idea of value, what's important about business is understanding this gap and how you can actually insert value to create a symbiotic relationship between two parties. Let me tell you what I mean. How many of you guys are familiar with Vivint?
Mm-hmm.
Sold
Everyone.
for him last summer.
Dude, awesome. So you want to hear like an amazing idea? That Todd Peterson, I love that guy. Dude, what a legend. Like truly. Right? Like that guy is amazing. But I'll tell you what, so you may think like Vivint is incredible. The business model's not that complicated. You want to hear what he did? Check it out. Look, there's Monotronics, there's Honeywell in the beginning. So we're going to talk about value, we're going to talk symbiosis, these ideas, okay? So Todd probably doesn't want a ton of overhead. He follows the $0 framework. It's genius. So he may go to Honeywell and say, hey, look, like I know you guys are crazy about R&D, research and development. You guys have an amazing product, don't you? Right, the security system that you're trying to get in people's house. Well, I would love to just sell it for you so you don't have to worry about your sales. Right? Like I'd love to just promote your product to people across the country. How do you feel about that? Well, what do you think Honeywell says? Like, dude, that sounds amazing. First of all, we're like an R&D company, right? Like this sounds so great. We don't like doing sales so much, right? And so look, like if we look at this kind of trifecta of what's happening, and the way that you can build businesses too, right? It's so fun, and it makes business like an absolute blast for you. So we'll say Vivint is up here. Let's say Honeywell's right here, and Monotronics is over here. So now Honeywell's like, yeah, dude, we would love if you promote it. Here's the deal that we can structure. And deals can be fun and creative in ways that are win-win. So obviously when a deal is sold, the Honeywell system goes into the house. Todd makes buku bucks, Honeywell makes buku bucks, and the client wins. They get a security system, which is amazing, right? And then Todd's like, there's one missing piece here. I need somebody to monitor it, right? Well, let's talk to Monotronics, right? So then they bring in Monotronics. Now look, what's so cool about this is in the beginning for Todd, there's very, 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 very little overhead for something like this. What overhead is there? Like, hey, we'll go promote your product and just, when we sell it, just help us get it in there, right? What does that look like? And then we just need somebody to monitor it. So he structures a deal. This is how good business is done. It's usually, so when people say, you've probably heard this before in your business class, how many studied business? I did. Now that's one thing I wish I would not have done. I wish I wouldn't have gone to college. This is bad advice for a lot of people. I'm
Say
sorry.
that one more time.
I'm sorry
Roger.
for your feelings. Yeah, and this is from the horse's mouth. I got an MBA, and it was worthless. I'll tell you that. Like it was. I would never ever encourage anyone to get an MBA ever.
I'm putting this all in the intro and like repeating a couple times.
Well, and I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable and saying I can go over why that's the case. Like I spent a lot of money, right, on school, and so I'm not like speculating and being like, hey, don't do it. I've never been there. I'm like, I've been there. Don't do it, right? It's because the reason is that like a lot of the information being learned is easily. It's very, very interesting stuff. Like if we look at transportation, it's been completely disrupted. 200 years ago, right?
Totally.
Like we're going riding ponies to like flying jets. That's amazing, right? We look at communication. We're going from like, again, riding ponies with like Pony Express, right? Like to to Morse code, right? It's crazy.
He's like, when was the last time you saw a horse?
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Like, then Morse code, then like the telephone, cell phones, like all of this crazy, the internet, cool communication. And then we look at education, dang it, and it's like still the exact same as it was 200 years ago. You've got all your Ivy Leagues, you know, Stanford and Brown and Harvard. It's these brick and mortar schools. What the heck has changed in 200 years? It's
The
like
price.
the price. It has to be like somebody has to come just disrupt the living heck out of the education system, right? Because back then, like if you're learning from the masters, right? Like you're actually going to one of those schools to learn from like a master. You can learn from a master for free now, right? You can type in like Elon Musk, who's like the master of the innovation in tech, and like, hey, what would you know, like some sort of lecture or something, TED Talk.
How I built this or anything.
Yeah, they're all free, right? And so like that's why some people have beef with that viewpoint, and that's okay too, right? Like I love to see things from their point of view too. I think it's amazing. College is great for lawyers and doctors. Like I definitely don't want somebody working on me that learned from YouTube, right? How to operate. Like it has its place certainly, right? But this is good. So we're talking about value. So in any sort of business, we have to figure out like where can I insert value? Todd, right? I can insert value here. I can create symbiotic relationship by selling their stuff. Now, what happens to Todd's revenue when he closes a deal? It goes up. What happened to Todd's costs because he was willing to create partnerships? They go down.
Right.
That's what you want in business. Cost down, revenue up. That equals larger profits, margin, right? This is so cool. Honeywell, Todd partners with them. What happens to their revenue?
It goes up.
It goes up. What happens to their costs? They don't need as big of a sales team. It goes down. Isn't that cool? This is win-win, right? Monotronics, same thing, up, down. This is a business, dang good business. The biggest winner of all is the customer too. Security systems are amazing, right? And for people that find value in feeling peace of mind and feeling safe, that's an amazing investment. They spend what, like $50 a month, and they feel like totally safe in their house. That's legit. And he creates an incredible business that way. So now if we look at this is really interesting. Why I focus on home services, right, like HVAC, plumbing, electrician, stuff like that, right, it's because there's a lot of value to be added there with those customers. Right? Like if I go to a tech company, I'm like, hey, you want me to run some ads for you? Like, dude, no, we got an in-house team that does all that stuff. Well, hey, I'll do it. You know, I'll do it for $20 a month. Dude, no, we already have that covered. That doesn't make sense. So a lot of people get really frustrated when they're like, I'm charging a good price. Why is no one buying, right? It's because they haven't identified a pain point, value. So when I go to an HVAC company who has no idea how to do any of this, zero clue, and I say, dude, do you want me to build your website? It's $3,500. Oh, dude, that's amazing. Right? That's great. We have no clue how to do that. Just like I have no clue how to fix an HVAC system. I don't want to. I'm going to pay some dude to do it. I don't want to learn on YouTube. I can make a whole lot more money by not fixing my HVAC system and paying somebody to do it than by trying to learn on YouTube how to do it. Does that make sense? So that is value, major, major value. That's why these epoxy guys, it's so legit. Right? They don't know how to do this stuff. So you can say, hey, $1,200 a month. Dude, awesome. It's a good deal. Does that make sense?
Right.
Super, super cool. Okay, so anyway, that's the value side of things. Pain, pleasure. I think, so I put pain and pleasure here because there's different types of businesses. HVAC, electrician, plumbing, that's on the pain side. Epoxy flooring, basement remodeling, pergola building, landscaping, that's on the pleasure side. And different types of products that you would sell to these people, right? Pleasure side will be Facebook, Instagram. Pain will be Google. Right, stuff that way, which is super cool. You guys are looking a little bit, how's everybody doing? Any questions about anything?
Is it getting hot in here? You guys good?
A little bit, yeah.
I think here, that was the 0DS stuff. Yeah, please.
Question. I come from a technical background, so I'm curious to know the technical, like what you're doing to get those customers. Like, I mean, you said Facebook ads, but like, so you're also doing SEO with like Google, or like, and then in regards to like website, are you using WordPress? Are you just hiring a like marketing firm? I guess I'm curious on how to make that automated, just because there's a lot that goes into that, and it requires a lot of like moving parts. So I'm curious to know how you found success in that.
Great question.
A lot about sourcing or
Yeah. So it's so cool to find people that are better than you at doing things that you don't want to do. It's like the best thing ever. right? So let's say you don't want to build websites. There's foreign developers that are incredible at building. They eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. That's all they do. They love it. They do it for like pennies on the dollar. And so what's amazing is you again, create 50 to 95% margins. They do all of the work. So you don't have to, and a lot of sites are built on WordPress. Most development companies know WordPress because it's what like the internet is built on basically, right? Which is super, super cool.
You probably tested out a lot of different people, haven't you?
What was that?
You probably test out a lot of different people. To see
Yes,
who's-
and that's why again it's good for students to be a part of something like this because I've done a lot of things the wrong way, and I'm grateful for that. Right? Like that makes me so happy. I failed in a lot of ways, and that's what's allowed me to do what I do. Right? Like to teach people about stuff that works and that can work really, really well. To give you one just last thing to end on here that's super fun, and then I want to talk a little bit of some things in your lives, whether you choose to do any of this, okay? If you want to. Feel free, like, please don't. I promise you, I never want anyone to feel embarrassed. Never. If your phone rings, I don't care. People coming late, I don't care. If you leave because you got things to do, feel free. I just want to provide oodles of value for you.
And don't forget Peter.
Like, oh, Peter, yeah. I want to help y'all crush it in your lives. Like, you guys deserve it, man. Like, people are incredible. Like, you guys deserve to just slay it. Makes me so happy doing stuff like this. Like, insanely happy. Let's see, what was I going to tell? Oh, like, here's a good example, right, for you guys. Like, so using the $0 framework, I built an app once for somebody. I didn't have to do any of the work. 68 grand in my bank account within a week and a half, right? Which is awesome. Not having to do anything. Okay, so
Can you tell us a little bit more?
yeah, sure. Like,
You're
I
like
want.
start to finish.
Skimmed
Like, how
over
did it
that.
start? Like, where did you find this person?
Do the connections.
What made you would give you the idea to build an app?
Yeah, like it's great stuff for people to understand, right? Because this is the mind-blowing stuff where they're like, dude, what the heck am I doing? Right? Like you realize you're at work. So by the way, this can all be done with your current job too. So there's no, let me say this. This is a great thing to talk about, and then we'll go through some of the technicalities and logistics of that deal. Call this stuff excuse juice, right? And I want to talk about it for just a second. Right? Like people have to stash their cupboards full of this stuff. They inject it into themselves. They keep it in their refrigerator, right? Like, and it makes
I
them.
love that term already so much.
It makes people feel better,
When you asked me on my channel,
right? Like it makes you feel like you have no accountability or responsibility. It numbs you to your potential. It's garbage. Like throw it in the trash. So what I mean by that is you may have a job right now, you're like, I can never do anything. That's bullcrap. I'll say you can do all this. Right? Like so that's excuse juice making its way into your veins, right? When you have this idea of like, oh man, this seems cool, but I've already got my job. I don't think I have time for this. I promise you have time for this, right? Like if you want to do it, you've got plenty of time to do it. What's really cool is consistency compounds. It's very important to understand this. It's insanely important. Your character is also found in consistency. Like if somebody does something good once, it doesn't make them like a good person. Right? Like consistency determines who you are, right? Which is really, really cool. And so this brings me to your point, okay? Like I told you we'd get back to it, overwhelm. All right, like it's feeling like this kind of looks depressing, discouraging. I don't blame you, right? Like this is a lot of stuff. It's a fire hydrant. Right? But what you can do is you can actually say, okay, so let's say that you got a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger up on the wall. You're like, dude, I want to look like that guy tomorrow. Well, I can tell you one thing, you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger tomorrow. There's no way. But here's what happens in people's lives. Right? This has to be understood. It needs to be very clear. Like very clear. Right? So let's say that you've got this thing, you're like, I'm going to go lift in the gym for 24 hours straight. Right? 24 hours. I'm going to be just pumping iron at the gym, and I am going to look like Arnold, right, at the end of this, right, which is going to be awesome. And you're thinking, it's going to be the best experience of my life. Well, what's going to happen at the end of that 24 hours? You're going to be completely depleted of all energy. You're going to feel depressed, discouraged, and just ticked. That's what I do. This is the worst. I don't want to look like Arnold. I don't even want to see a gym again, right, for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to do anything that Arnold's doing, right? By the end of that, you're going to want to collapse. Best thing to do is say, okay, I want to look like Arnold. What's something small I can do every single day for about 30 minutes? And that's it. And then when you're done with that thing, you stop and you put it in the drawer. It's really cool how this works. All right, brushing your teeth is the same way. You're not going to have clean teeth by doing it for 60 hours and then never brushing it in your life. It's only 2 minutes a day, right? You're brushing your chomps. But what's so cool is it takes care of you, right? Throughout your life that way. So this, if you were to dedicate, okay, I'm going to do 30 minutes total. That's it. That's it. I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to decompress. Right? So Stephen R. Covey talks about sharpening the sod. He says, look, if you find some dude in the forest and he's cutting down a tree with a saw with no teeth on it, how long is it going to take him? Well, he's not going to cut it down. He's going to be there for weeks, months, and years with no progress. But you say, dude, just sharpen the dang thing for 20 minutes. Right? And then try and you'll have the tree cut down in 10. Right? So what we can do is after we come home from work, we can actually relax. It's okay. Right? Some people, again, the wrong frame of mind. This is where we got to change. We have to be willing to change our mindsets. We've been conditioned on purpose. I think the 9 to 5 is my life. 9 to 5 job. It's what I do. I'm like a dang hamster on a rat wheel, just like all day, just doing the same thing. I wake up and I do the same thing the next day, right? Same hamster wheel. I get off and I do the same thing, and it's just day in and day out the same thing. It doesn't have to be that way. Break the mold, right? It's so cool. You get home and be like, I'm just going to relax for just a second. And then for 30 minutes, that's it. I'm going to work on this. Oh, wait, it's been a week and I have a client. I'm making an extra $1,200 a month. My cost is only $300. I'm profiting $900. Oh, wait, by the end of 4 months, I've got 10 clients. This is crazy. I'm making $9,000, $108,000 a year sitting on my biscuit.
Best 30 minutes of the day.
Right. Right. Well, I can tell you one thing. I love what Mikey just said. But it won't be the best 30 minutes of your day. It's going to be hard. Right. It's going to be
the best, really hard
that's
30
right.
minutes of your day.
In that way, it's true. Right. Like what he says is true. It's going to be a challenge. But anybody can do something like that for 30 minutes. That's why I love the gym. Way more about conquering yourself early in the morning. I wake up, do you think here's the thing about the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. Hey, this is perfect, green and red. Successful, right? They have something.
Good Jedi.
They have something that they don't want to do. Just like the person that's not successful feels. Exact same way. People have it all wrong. They think like successful people just love doing these hard things. No, they don't. It sucks. It's hard. It's supposed to be that way. But they do it anyway. That's the difference. So when you wake up in the morning and you want to keep sleeping, a successful person says, dude, I don't give a dang what my brain is telling me to do right now. I'm getting out of bed. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my... Sorry. So good. Right, the captain of my soul. I am in control here. I have the ability to choose. Right? And that's the best thing ever. And then you get up and your body's like, dude, you don't want to go to the gym. It's going to hurt. Dude, I don't give a dang, man. I'm going. Right? I'm going. Right? And so by 8:30 in the morning, you've conquered yourself. You're completely, you've come off conqueror. Right? So whatever happens the rest of the day, who gives a dang? No one stands a chance. Right? No hard thing stands a chance. You can do whatever. And it's so cool. So what that teaches you about life is that you can do anything that you want. Man. It's interesting, right? Because when we fall victim
Bad Jedi.
to this, bad Jedi, right? This guy wakes up and he's like, dude, I'm exhausted. Just one day won't matter. I'm going to go back to sleep. But one day it turns into a week, which turns into a month, which turns into years, which turns into your life. John Greenleaf Whittier wrote a very good poem. So good. He said, of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Isn't that good? So what I get bummed at is I see people at the end of their lives, and they're like, I wish I would have done this. Well, why didn't you? You only got one shot. Right? Why didn't you do it? Who's stopping you? Right? They've injected themselves full of excuse juice their whole lives. Right? And that's a bummer deal because it's gotten the best of them. So anyway, yeah, ditch this stuff, right? Like, and just do what you want to do. Right? It's great in life. You want to make $100K in a month, go do it. No one's stopping you. Right? Just go do it. Study, read, do the hard stuff. Brian Tracy, who knows Brian Tracy?
I listen to a clip from him every morning,
Dude.
and it gets me every time because it's just like, look, it's like if you want something, it's like follow the 10 steps, write down what you need to do, make a plan, put a timeline, write out all the steps, then do it. And he's like, you'll be rich. You can't help it.
Amen, dude. You can't help it. That's the cool thing. Is it? Remember, this is so legit. You guys, it's the coolest thing what he just said. First of all, Brian Tracy said, if you do hard things, your life is going to be easy. He says, if you do easy things, your life is going to be hard. We live by paradigms and paradoxes. That's what life is all made up of. The way we see things. And most often, the things that we want in life are going to require some sort of opposite action. Right? In order to be comfortable, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. It's really, really cool. If you're going to want to love, if you want to love anything, you're going to have to sacrifice. That's a paradox. That's kind of odd, isn't it? Paradigms and paradoxes. It's important stuff. Now to his point, Mikey's point, remember we talked about principles, laws? Another law is the law of the harvest. If you plant a seed and you nourish that seed, you're going to get dang fruit. It's as easy as that. It's a natural law. It's a byproduct. You want to make money because you think it makes you happy? I'll tell you, and I want to prove, remember I said I proved to you that money doesn't make you happy. So I want to share with you some things about that, okay? But if you want to make money, and by the way, I'm a big proponent of money. I like to make lots and lots of it. But I will tell you, it does not, and it will not make you happy. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Okay, who knows Adam Webb? I hope everyone raises their hand. Dang it. Dude, Adam
I know
Webb,
a guy named Adam Webb, but I don't know if he's the guy you're talking about.
he's the coolest dude ever. He wrote the book, The Six-Figure Summer. He is, if anyone's like a Jedi, it's Adam Webb. Right?
He's a green marker kind of guy.
Yeah, dude, this
He's
guy,
a green marker.
he is. Oh, dude, and I just forgot why I wanted to talk about him.
Money.
Darn it, Michael.
Happiness. Oh, dude, yes. Okay. So I just spoke with Adam Webb at a conference, and at this conference, it was so good. Adam showed some pictures of these little kids who had literally nothing. They didn't have anything. They're running around with the largest smiles on their faces you could ever imagine, chasing around broken rims and hula hoops or whatever it is. They are so happy. Remember the little monkey with the apples? Right? Like, America is an interesting place that way, isn't it? It's very, very interesting. Right? We feel entitled. We feel like we have to have all this stuff. Like, it's what makes us. So, what you're going to find is now I'm going to end, unless you guys have questions, I can answer any questions you have, but I'm going to end with 3 G's, things that are most important, that will make you happy. I'm going to talk about Peter, which is super important. Oh, and I wrote Churchill for just a second, okay? Winston Churchill, you guys know who this guy is. I'd say arguably like one of the very best world leaders we've ever known, correct? Winston Churchill, right? The dude took 2 baths a day, a lot of time, and he didn't start working until 12 o'clock. Wait a minute. Does that sound a little funky to the schedule that we're so used to here in America? Right? Every day, I want to show you guys my calendar. First, actually, so let me show you something that's so dang important. I have to show you guys something, okay? This is so good. First of all, are you guys out of here? Oh, thanks. Pretty soon? Okay. I'm so grateful I got to meet you. Whenever you leave, I just feel thankful I got to meet you. Winston Churchill, he didn't start work until 12 o'clock. He literally said, like, hey, even to like his sweethearts, like, hey, like, I'm not starting until 12. That's when my day begins. Okay? That's different, isn't it? Noon? It's a little odd. Okay.
I like it.
What was that?
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I was going to show you. Look at my calendar. I do the same thing. I don't even start work from 7 a.m. until 11:30. It says personal time. I do only things that I want to do. It's the best. I wake up early, I go to the gym, I come home. I love mornings with all of my heart. They're my favorite time of the day. Love mornings. I come home and I love to eat Fairlife milk with a bowl of Wheaties and a kiwi. Like, kiwis are amazing. For a kiwi with protein shake, and then I go upstairs and I love, if you haven't tried Dr. Teal's bath stuff.
Epsom salts.
Epsom salt, dude. I get in a tub almost every single day and I read. Is this a good use of my time or not? Well, you tell me.
Everyone here is rethinking their life and like getting on Amazon. They're like Epsom salts.
Now, is
Yeah.
it the chocolate Fairlife?
I just need a bath.
What was
Is
that?
it the chocolate milk that's Fairlife?
Dude, I love
You do
chocolate
the
Fairlife. I love all
chocolate one,
Fairlives.
chocolate-
Oh, Fairlife's
Better
great.
They're
than
so good. It
Premier?
is.
Premier protein?
I do. I like it better than Premier. Yeah, it's
Wow.
good.
Our
Well, I like
sponsors for this evening.
Exactly. It's great. But what I'll say is this, right? Like, that time is sacred to me. I learned so much about how to do what I do during those hours. It's not idle time. That's different. I'm not sleeping in. Right? I'm not just a couch potato waiting until 11:30. Like, all right, I guess I'll start now. Those are very intentional hours. I am definitely sharpening the saw during those times. Right? Thinking, pondering, considering things that need to happen in the business, reading books that are changing the business. Right? Prepping for a meeting at 11:30. I have a meeting every single day at 11:30. It's awesome. So I want you guys again to reconsider. Right? Now, how many times do you think you look at your phone a day? Take a guess. I want you guys to just humor me. How many times do you
Like
think you look
just
at your
pick
phone?
it up and look at it.
100 times.
150.
At least 1,000.
100, 150,
Probably
1,000.
like
This
500 or
thumb
600
hurts.
times.
It's the button.
I know.
I use my left hand
Well,
sometimes
is
with
it-
my thumb will
You've
start.
got your watch, like,
Yeah.
Watch counts, it's like 4,000.
Yeah, serious, exactly. We look at our phones on average 344 times per day, once every 4 minutes, which is super interesting.
That's crazy.
Now, what's so cool about life, and you can look that up, by the way. Look at that. It's
I don't need
it's
to.
accurate.
I already know
It's
it's true.
accurate, which is cool. So here's what's interesting, right, about this step. We can use this to our advantage. We can biohack our brains with this, which I love doing. Right? It's cool. People can be addicted to their phones, or they can use it for a good thing. Right? So back in the day, how many of you have read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
Great one.
It's a great book, right? It's a really good book. But we talked earlier about, it's not just about affirmations. Right? Anybody that says that, you're going to want to just be careful, right? It's not just, I want this, I want this. It's about affirming something, believing it, and then acting towards it. That's how you'll get it. And so and you will get it. That's promise. You will get it, right?
If you keep your promise to yourself and you actually do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it takes that commitment and then the action. If you don't act, then you break your trust with with your own will.
That is right. We've got some of the best stuff we've talked about at all tonight. Look, usually I have this thing I learned on my mission. The Lord blesses the last 5%. Promise. So you're coming into the last 5% of our meeting. You're going to receive some of the best stuff we've talked about tonight.
Thanks.
Okay, I know you got it.
He's like, we're leaving.
I know, what a bummer. It'll be some of the best we've talked about. Remember, you guys know, like, Elder Uchtdorf, right? Like, top floor, last door.
Yeah.
My first deal I ever got,
Yeah.
with one of my companies, I was knocking all day in the hot sun. It was the worst. It's the last door. Right? It's just how life goes. It's like we're purposefully being tested, isn't it? It's super tested. It's super funny how that is. That's the case. We had, what were we talking about when you had mentioned
Keeping your promise to yourself. Think and grow rich.
Think and Grow Rich? Oh, thank you. Yeah. So on my phone, you look at your phone a lot. So back in the day, we used to put like things, our goals, on our mirrors and stuff, right? But how many times are you in your bathroom a day? Not very often.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you're, I don't know, definitely less than 344 times, right? Without a doubt. So I want to share these with you, and it's gonna make you want to push. Okay, these are my goals, and I see that there's not a ton of them. They're very intentional, very intentional. Every person I've ever known that has found wild amounts of success says you have to get clear about what you want. Have to. It's not, so sometimes you might ask somebody and say, hey, like, what do you want? It's a really good question to ask yourself. You got to use it as a prompt and write the heck out of it. What do I want? Because you're going to find when you write that down, you're like, I don't know, I want to be successful. Oh, but how? With who? Right? When? What is it like? You got to be very clear. Think of a plane taking off in New York. Like, I don't know, I want to land somewhere in Utah, right? Like somewhere on the West Coast. No, it's like I'm landing at these coordinates, latitude, longitude, Salt Lake City Airport at this time, within 2 minutes. Isn't that interesting? That's how it gets to where it's going. That's how you'll get to where you're going. Alice approached a cat, right? In Alice in Wonderland, you guys know, up in the tree. There's a bunch of roads going all over the place. And the cat asks Alice one of the most important questions we could ever be asked in our lives. Alice, where are you going? I don't know. Not really sure. Well, then it doesn't really matter which road you take. Alice, pick one. Right? In our lives, so we find ourselves drifting, unfortunately. Right? We don't want that. Right? We want to be intentional. Right? So look, these things I have, number one, the number one thing I have on my phone is I am a loving husband and father. Before anything else. Inputs. And now we understand like why it's important to be careful. James Allen wrote a great book called As a Man Thinketh. Right? You can finish that entire book in 30 minutes if you listen to it at 2x speed on Audible. Right? It's really good. It's so good. Right? And one of the things that he says, it's amazing. He says, your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. Isn't that good? Right? Nobody goes to a dang flower patch looking to plant weeds. But we so often find ourselves planting weeds into the best garden we'll ever row. Right? It's your mind can be a garden of Eden, a place to go to find peace. It can be a place of inspiration. God can be there. And that's exciting stuff. Right? It's your superpower. Right? And so it ought to be treated that way, which is good. It's a good thing. Okay, so last stuff now. Remember, so we've covered a lot of great things this evening. It's been so fun to be with y'all. It really has. It's been so good. I think this is such a great group. I think the world of Mikey. I think he's such a stud to do this. Like what a, it's truly, this is just like, I don't know what other people come, but like what a wonderful evening, right? Of being able just to kind of get together with good people. I feel so thankful to know each of you guys. Boy, that's a treat for me. But getting to invest time, I use my words very intentionally. I do not say spend time with you. I say I'm getting to invest my time with you. This has not been a waste of time for me. This has very much so been an investment with y'all, right? I've become better being with you, which is great.
Peter?
So Peter. we got to talk about him. This is like, boy, like probably one of the best things that we could end with tonight. It's so good. And I've realized there's two scriptures I have to mention before we get to Peter, if that's okay with you guys. Humor me. And one thing about integrity as well, because I put it up here, to your point. Integrity is not just honesty. Right? We have to understand, when we use a word, we have to understand very clearly what it means for us in our lives. Integrity is actually something that will affect self-confidence. And I want to explain why. It's super, super important. Right? It's very important. And maybe after all of this, Peter, so I'll prove to you why money doesn't make you happy, because I told you I would. I'll put it down here if you want. Right? At the end of all this. Integrity is interesting because your brain believes things that it's being fed. So when you say something like, I'm going to do something, and you don't do it, who are you hurting? Yourself. Big time. I'll tell you why. What happens is your brain starts to believe what you're telling it. The input's being brought in. So you say, I'm going to do this, and you don't do it. So when next time you say, hey, I'm going to make $100,000 in a month, what does your brain say? No, you won't. You've never kept your word. You've always said you're going to do something, but you haven't done it. Now here's the challenge, and also the solution. Right? If you tell your brain something and you follow through, it does begin to believe you. And the minute you saying words and believing something, they're entirely different. So you can say, I'm going to do this, but if you don't believe it in here, it's going to be real tough, near impossible to make it happen. If you say, I'm going to do this, and your brain says, I know you will. You've always kept your word. It's going to happen. Right? Isn't that cool? The difference in getting what you want and not getting what you want in life is based off of integrity and self-confidence, belief. Right? It's very, very interesting. So you want to be careful about promises you make to yourself, won't you? Right? Now you understand like why integrity is important. It's not just be honest. It's your future depends on it. Right? It actually does depend on it. It's very, very interesting. So as you say something and then you keep to yourself what you said you're going to do, you develop more confidence in who you are. And it allows you to get into a room with people, wherever you're at, and it doesn't really matter what anybody thinks, or says, or does. You're just who you are. And like, I don't have kids yet, but we're trying right now, and I'm stoked to be a dad someday. Right, but like, I want my kids there, holding my hand. And if somebody were to come into the room and say, hey, what was he like? You know what I don't want them to say? Oh, he loved money. Never. Never. Gosh dang, never. I'd love for my wife to say, he loved me. See, it's cool what these things do, going to places in your mind, isn't it? It creates emotions that create actions. But I want to say, like, we made the best memories. It was a good life, right, that we had together. And I want my kids, especially, I want them to be able to say, my dad never missed a baseball game. He was always there. Right? My dad never missed one of my dance classes. He was always there. He loved me. He showed me he loved me because he always spent time with me. Right? Because I have that etched into my mind, and it's something I see 344 times a day, it will happen. No one's going to stop me. Like, no one can. It doesn't matter. I have no excuses. I'm accountable and responsible to make it happen, and I will. Right? And that's what's so fun about life. Right? I can create this beautiful thing based off of choices that I decide to make. Right? So the second thing I have, it says I make $250,000 per month. This is important. Right? Like when we have these types of goals, they push us to be the best versions of ourselves. Money is, again, just a byproduct of growth, of developing and adding value for other people, right? Which is super, super cool. It's great. It allows you to give back, to do good things, to make people happy. It's so fun. And one of the things I'll say is that if you're like, I'll give when I have that amount, it's not good. You want to readjust that paradigm, take off your glasses and squish them and put on a different pair. You want to think, I'll give now. Right? That's what will happen, and you'll be blessed for it. I promise you'll be blessed for that. There's a reason that we learn in the Bible about the widow and the mite that she had to give. She gave more than those that had a lot of money because it was all she had, and she was blessed for it. Right? So it's really, really cool. You want to give now, and you want to find ways you can give. It's my mission president, everything. Man, sorry. Like everything that I have right now, I think I owe to him. He just, like, he taught me a lot. about life. Look. Excuse me, I gotta use this for more than just an eraser. Right, he explained, it should always hurt to give. Right, if it doesn't hurt, then you're probably not giving right enough. So it should always be like, ooh, man, that kind of stings a little bit. Right, that's a good thing. It's a good feeling. And then I'm a best-selling author, right? Which would be great. Stoked for the book to come out. When I see this, I think, dude, I got to get this thing out, right? It's going to happen. And then I bench press 315 pounds and I maintain 9% to 11.5% body fat. To me, that's important, right? And it's not just the physical stuff. It's because of what it does for me mentally, right? It's my brain going, my blood pumping. So get what you want in life by being very clear about what it is. Have it in front of you where you see it every day. A notification pops up, oh, there it is again. And even it will be programmed into your mind subconsciously. And people think they understand what's going on in the subconscious. They don't. It's subconscious, right? Like they get confused, like, I know about the subconscious. It's like, no, it's happening beneath your conscious level, right? Your brain is like a supercomputer. It's being programmed based off of inputs. Some people are going to love you. Others may not. Can we just go back to Jesus? Did he have integrity? Did he have self-confidence? Did people love him? Did people hate him? What a good example. Right? It's a great byproduct. Who is this man that's speaking with such authority? Who is this dude? This is nuts. Right? With people, what they're saying about him, it stemmed from his power, his self-confidence, his integrity in his word, his virtue. Right? It's good. So we might as well cover that. Right? That's good stuff. Now, I need to cover two scriptures, Matthew 6 and Matthew 7. Very, very important. Matthew 6:26 is very good. It says, behold the fowls of the air. They sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are you not much better than they? That's so good. For a lot of reasons. We allow fear to rule our lives in a lot of ways, don't we? Don't you? It scares you. Right? You want to do something, but you don't because you're scared of what could happen, what might happen. But what is God telling you? If you believe it, how many, look, this is really interesting. How many of you believe Jesus? How many of you trust Jesus? I love it. I want to present an idea that may be new to you. I think it is more of a sliding scale of belief instead of something that is on or off. I trust him or I don't. What I mean by that is, if we really trust Jesus, if we really trust him, we will never be afraid. So I would say I'm working on my trust in him. I love to think that I trust him with all my heart, but sometimes I still get scared. But perfect love casteth out all fear. Isn't that interesting? It's interesting, right? And it allows us to do anything that we want in life when we have perfect faith and trust. Now, faith is an interesting word because it's not just belief. It's belief coupled with action. Right? So it's very interesting. So we see this great verse. Jesus is trying so hard. His whole life, he's trying so hard to help people see inside of themselves what they have the power to become. Greater works than these will you do. Right? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Right? These things that you've seen me do, you can do them too. Right? It's really, really cool what he's teaching people. Out of 10,000 acorns, only one of them will become an oak tree. Isn't that interesting? Out of 10,000 acorns. I thought they all became oak trees. Did a little research on it. They don't. Right? It requires a whole lot for that little acorn to become an oak tree. But it is to fulfill the measure of its creation. For those acorns that are willing to abide by principles and laws, they will. Isn't that interesting? So Jesus is trying so hard to move people from being acorns to oak trees, like so hard, through their minds, through their belief systems. Which is really interesting. That's why he says, behold the fowls of the air. Look at the dang birds outside. They don't even work a day in their lives. They toil not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns. Those dang things don't do anything. Right? But yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. This is why these verses can be so powerful. It's not just reading through that real quick, right? He's telling you, look, you don't have any if you want to start your own company, you have no reason to be afraid. Zero. Because if he's going to take care of the birds, are you not much better than they? Isn't that cool? There's no reason to be afraid. Now, the last verse in chapter 6 is so good. I'd encourage you to go read chapter 6 if you want. Right? It'll be a good study sesh for you. But the last verse is so good. It says, take therefore no thought for the morrow. What is he saying here? Because he says, for the things of the morrow will take. Oh, what is it, the exact phrase? Let me make sure that I read it right, so I don't blow it here for y'all. What was that?
This is Peter chapter 6.
Oh, this is
Matthew.
Matthew chapter 6. I don't want to ruin this, and so let me just read exactly what it says. Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. This is new, isn't it? Maybe it's a new way. What's so fun about these books and these scriptures that I read is it feels like I'm reading something brand spanking new every time. Doesn't it? It's crazy. I can read these books. I don't know how many times I've read this, and every single time I read it, I swear that's new. Right? It's so good. The morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. What he's saying is really important. He's saying, look, you don't need to worry so much about what could happen, what might happen, right? All these things that you're concerned about in the future. Isn't today challenging enough? You got enough going on today. Just be present. Be here now. Right? And the things tomorrow will take care of themselves. Isn't that cool? It's a great teaching. You've got the Son of God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, explaining this to you. That's so good. Okay. Now, Matthew 7. Look, this is why I asked you. This is why I asked you if you believe Jesus. All right? This is good. Just tune in for 2 seconds. This is so important. Because I want to test you. Look. Matthew 7:7. Ask and it shall be given you. Do you believe Jesus? Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and him that knocketh it shall be opened. Now listen, this is one of my favorite verses of all time. In all of the scriptures that we have, this is probably one of my very favorites. Listen to this. Or what man is there of you, whom if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to him that asketh? He's a good dad. Like, he's the best dad. And who of us? Like, we're not perfect. We are people that struggle, right? We still want to give good gifts, don't we? Birthdays come and we don't want to give somebody a snake or a rock. It's not like happy birthday, right? It's like you're wanting to do good, and we are weak and imperfect. How much more does God, your dad, your heavenly Father, want to give good things to people that ask him? Do you want to make $100,000 in a month? Ask him. Isn't that cool? That's what I did. But then I went to dang work figuring out how to do it. I did not just say, please help me do this. Right? This would be awesome. Right? It's getting to work. Right? So now finally, we end with Peter. Our good brother Peter, the man. Right? This guy is the man for a lot of reasons. We're going to talk about some of those just briefly, right, tonight, which is good. This guy's a legend. Truly. So picture this. Just imagine this for a moment. I need you to put yourself there, okay? You don't have to close your eyes, but if it helps, you certainly can. Because a lot of times people breeze over stuff in the scriptures, and they don't put themselves there. And so it doesn't mean as much. Right? What you got to do is think, okay, this is the Sea of Galilee. It's the fourth watch of the night. It's pitch black. I don't know if you all have ever been out on a lake when it's pitch black, but it'll scare you spitless. Right? It is very frightening. My family grew up going to Lake Powell during the summer, and there were apostles out there. Now, here's what's interesting, okay? Now think about this. Just think about this. So not only is the rain coming down, the wind's blowing, your boat's about capsizing. You're like, dude, what is going on? I mean, this is creepy as all get out. And all of a sudden, you look over. So maybe you're Peter and you're just hanging out. You know, you got John, James over there. Like, dude, what's going on? This is creepy. We got to get back to shore. And all of a sudden, you look over and you just see this thing walking across the water. Dang. Right? Like this would have been like, what in the world? What is this night? Right? And all of a sudden, it's 4 in the morning, all of a sudden, and it starts moving towards you. They ask themselves, dude, is that a spirit? James, do you see that? Is that some spirit walking towards us? Right? Think of how creepy that would be. Like your hair would be standing up on the back of your neck. Right? Wouldn't it? But is this not your life? Think about this. How many times have you found yourself dark, in a storm, the wind's blowing, the rain's coming, right? It's very scary. You're not sure what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, Jesus shows up on the scene. He always does, like at the perfect time. He's always right on time. So he shows up, and the very first thing he says, before anything else, the very first words out of his mouth are what? They're always the same. Be not afraid. Look, it's me. You don't need to be afraid. Now think of what must have happened in their hearts when they recognized this. Oh, James, it's Jesus. Good. We're good, right? This is okay, right? Like, we're all right. But that would have been a good feeling, right, to see that. So Peter gets the gall and the courage, right? He stands up on the boat, says, Lord, if it be thee, bid me come unto thee. What the heck? Right? Like, I mean, I don't know who in the world has this idea. I wouldn't. I would have been holding onto the seats in the boat, grabbing them, right? Peter stands up. If it's really you, Jesus, just tell me to come out there with you. So Jesus, being who he is, invites Peter to grow, to get out of his comfort zone, and to do something that was seemingly impossible. Doesn't that happen to you? And he says to Peter, come. Come on out here. Right? It's interesting because you probably have had this happen in your life, haven't you? And if you stay in the boat, it's okay. Right? The other guys were great. But Peter grew to know the Savior differently, didn't he? He had a very unique, special relationship with Jesus because of his willingness to act. So he gets out of the boat. Now, I want you to consider something I'm almost certain you've never considered before. This, I think, will be a new idea. And it is simply this. Jesus is the conduit of the miracle. He's like electricity. But Jesus does not determine whether or not the miracle will happen. Otherwise, Peter would never have sank. Does that make sense? Now, think about everything we've talked about tonight. Your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. Is this good? Because think about this. What happens in Peter? Because he's going to be taught something very important about his life and about his opportunities and his potential. right? Because although Jesus is the electricity, we get to activate the switch. So it's on for Peter. He believes. And it affects, here's what's interesting, his belief. Now, this is and I don't know if y'all have ever studied quantum physics, but I'm a big fan of it. There's something I would encourage you to research if you want to dig deep into some of these ideas. And it is the double slit experiment. Okay, it's bonkers. Very interesting. But what you'll find is that his thought patterns, his belief systems affected his reality. Is that interesting? It affected his outcome. So where does now look, Jesus, once again, the man, the legend, teaches something super important. What does he say to us? He says, the kingdom of God is within you. What the heck is he talking about? Is that good or what? So think about this stuff. It's much, much, much deeper than he that hath eyes to see, let him see. Right? He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. Jesus is teaching something where you can either go snorkeling or scuba diving. Right? And he's trying to make a point here. So what's interesting is this belief system, Peter believes that he walks on water. Now remember, with God, nothing is impossible. You can do anything, including defying natural law. In fact, if you look up miracle in the Bible dictionary, it will say, when a higher law supersedes a lower law. Dang. That's amazing. How are angels coming through doors and walls and people standing above the ground, walking on water? These are miracles. Right? But then what happened? So think about it. What affected Peter's sinking? What caused it?
Fear.
Fear. Where does fear start?
Doubt.
Doubt. Where does doubt? Bingo. Dude, this is money. Dang. This is crazy, isn't it? It started with a simple thought. It was a thought. Is a thought powerful? Dang. Right, this dude goes from walking on water to sinking. Then we receive a very, very important gift from Jesus. First of all, we learn his character, which is super important. We learn he doesn't let Peter sit there and flail around in the water like he's going to sink. He's scared, and Jesus knows it. So immediately, you can go look it up. The scripture, immediately he reached down. Right? That's amazing to me. Peter, wherefore didst thou doubt? Oh, ye of little faith. So was it on Jesus? No. Jesus is the conduit. He's the electricity. Peter activated the switch. You can have anything in life that you want. Anything that you want. Isn't that cool? And God, your desires need to be good. And Jesus literally says, ask and you shall receive. But he wants faith. Real faith. He is the author and the finisher of your faith. He's where it begins. He's where the little acorn is planted. Now, if you've wondered about that title Jesus has, it's a very interesting title. Have you ever thought about that, the author and the finisher? It's very specific and it's very intentional. He's where your faith began, isn't it? As a little kid, your parents teaching you, hey, here's who Jesus is. That's what he does. A little seed was planted. And he's where your faith ends. Think about the brother of Jared. He had faith no longer because he knew. His faith was finished. Isn't that interesting? We learn a ton about life through these experiences, right? And so I would like to encourage you to look deeper into some of these things that we talked about tonight. Right? It's good stuff. And it'll help you get where you want to go. It's awesome. I think that's about it. This has been a great group. I think, let's see, it's 9. Wow, yeah. Good stuff. You guys, I know you need to head out. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you don't have any, that's great too. Yeah, but whatever I can do to help you, I'd love to help.
What are you bench pressing now?
About 305.
Is the question.
That's right. I need to get exactly.
You're right there. We're close to the
I'll do here the math.
your macros.
I do macros. Yeah, they're good. They're real good.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. You guys are awesome.